know I've said that word probably a dozen times in this episode, but I just think it's so important. And I think that making that decision early on to not just like, I'm going to stay humble, but to ask God to keep me humble, to ask God to like, I'm very word picture-y in my brain. And so in my head, I was like, keep your hand on the top of my head.
Yeah.
And like when I try to rise myself up above you and your goodness, or that you built this, like when I try to go into look what I did, just like sit down, babe. Yeah, you just go ahead and sit down. Like you go ahead and sit.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Blueprint. I'm Courtney Cook, founder of Monarch COO, where I help mission-driven entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Each week, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs to explore the stories behind their successes and challenges. Whether you're just dreaming of starting a business or already building one, this podcast is here to show you that entrepreneurship is more attainable than it might seem, with insights for every stage of the journey. Let's dive into today's conversation and see what it takes to build a business.
Today on the podcast, I have Blake Guichet, who is a small-town Louisiana girl who's made a living out of saying what everyone is thinking. She is the host of the wildly popular podcast called the Speakeasy, author of a book titled Confessions of a Crappy Christian, and spends her days covering American politics, theology, and simple living on social media while homeschooling her two daughters. She finds inspiration from slow mornings at home, time in the mountains, the Word of God, and weird old movies. Like even someone I've admired from afar for a really long time. And you're actually on my dream list of guests for this podcast. So having you here today is such an honor. So thank you for being the first person I can officially check off that list. I so appreciate it. And even more so, thank you for your courage in tackling hard and sometimes controversial topics with boldness and grace, all with the ultimate goal of furthering the kingdom. So I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Do you mind just kicking us off with what are the different arms of your business as an influencer, an author, and maybe I should call you a public figure? I don't know if that's a thing, these days.
Yeah.
What is the term?
I don't even know. When people ask what I do, I just say, it depends on the day. I'll say like I'm a podcaster, or I'll say I'm a content creator, because this world it's still pretty new. And so people are still acclimating to treating it like it's a real business and it's a real field that people find success in. And so I don't even know. I still am just like, I'm an internet person. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, as far as the arms of my business, they are kind of ever changing, which is one of the really beautiful things about building a business online is it ebbs and flows and fluctuates and changes with you, right?
Yeah.
And so my seasons, I started full-time online in 2018. And my life has changed really significantly since then, between my husband's job or where, bringing my children home from regular school to homeschool, that like it's just changed. And so my business is able to adapt with me, which is just such a gift. But as it stands today, I would say, so my Instagram is where I probably spend the most time, just in my stories and in my feed. I've built a really incredible community around kind of the things that you said earlier: American politics, theology, day-to-day life, homeschooling. It's like the list is very long because I am a multifaceted person. I have all of these different things I'm interested in. I'm a big believer in not niching yourself down too hard, because then you kind of put yourself in a box. I have my podcast, Confessions of a Crappy Christian. No, that's not true. It's the Speakeasy. We just rebranded it like 3 months ago, and I am still not used to it, obviously. That is the title of my book. My podcast was Confessions of a Crappy Christian for 6 years, and we just rebranded it in January to the Speakeasy, which has been a great move.
Yeah.
The podcast has been I've always loved the podcast. That was my first love. That was what I kicked things off with in 2018. The podcast was my 30th birthday present to myself. And
Sweet.
So that's my baby. And I love that I get to have incredible conversations with just people who fascinate me, that I want to talk to about. There's literally, you could throw a dart at a dartboard and probably get closer to what it's going to be about that week, because you just never know. So like you mentioned, I offer courses. That is honestly like a smaller part of my business now, where it used to play a bigger part. But I guess it was 2023, I think I wanted to move into allowing content creation to be a larger portion of my income because I just wanted to talk about, more than building a presence online. Like I just wanted to move out of that, and God totally blessed that in the most insane and abundant ways. And so my courses are still always available. They're always running, but it's just moved down the totem pole. Yeah. I guess I would say. And then I think you told me this comes out next week, like on the 8th. Yeah. So on the 7th, we're actually opening a new community membership site. It's called the Speakeasy Lounge. I am so sick of Instagram at the same time as how much I love it. I'm so sick of censorship and algorithms and shadow bans and losing people's DMs in the middle of a conversation. And I also I have the most incredible followers. They are funny and invested and critical thinkers, and I want to be able to connect them with each other. And so we've been working since January to build out a membership site that will allow for community and connection and also more content. Instagram like penalizes you if you post too much, which is so counterproductive and counterintuitive, but that's just the way it works. And so I am talkative, if you haven't noticed. And so I have way more to say than the confines of Instagram allows me to. And so that's a new arm of the business that I'm really excited about, that we're in the final stages of putting together and getting out into the world.
That's exciting. Something totally new. Yeah. So is that kind of the area you feel particularly drawn to at the moment out of all of the facets? Cool.
Yeah, I would say so.
Awesome. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get started on Instagram? Did your book, like what came first in the storyline?
So I am an internet dinosaur. I can go back to the days of like live journal, blogging. Yeah. I've always been very fascinated with this ability. I mean, AIM, right? Like I was coding my MySpace page in high school. I've always loved just this opportunity to connect with people online. It's just always been really interesting to me. And I've always been pretty tech savvy. My family calls me tech support. Literally this morning, nice. I walked into my parents' house and they were like, tech support's here. So I would say like I built a small but mighty following around a blog that was titled Fearless for years. And then I became a mom in 2014 and I kind of shut everything down for a couple of years. It was just a full-time stay-at-home mom, kind of walked away from it all. And within a few years, started to kind of feel that itch to have something that was mine, that was, another outlet, and talked about motherhood a lot and mental health and Christianity and being a woman and all of these things. And so kind of started doing that on Instagram. And then, like I said, December of 2018, I launched my podcast. Then it was Confessions of a Crappy Christian. And I think I know that I had less than 1,000 followers on Instagram at the time.
Oh, nice.
I think I had like 990 or something like that. And a majority of that a lot of that was people that I knew, right? I think I had my Instagram since early college. And so kicked that off and it did really well out the gate. My goal and real motive with it was I wanted it to be like nitty gritty. I wanted it to feel rough around the edges because the landscape of female podcasting, especially female Christian podcasting, has changed really significantly in the last 6 years. But back then it was very surface level, pink, flowers. And that was just not the vibe for me. And it was honestly born out of, I was looking for something that I couldn't find. And I felt like God said, go make it.
Yeah.
So I did. And so I was working at a local church at the time. I had gotten a job. My children, like it was a part-time kind of thing. And they were going to a little like Mother's Day out. And so I worked there for a full like 2 years. Pandemic hits. That was really crazy for churches, right? Because everybody had to go to online. Well, I was in their communications department. So we're like at the helm. So it was a crazy, and I'm trying to build my business. I'm building out my first course at the time. So in September of 2020, I, within a week of each other, signed a book deal with Tyndale and launched my first course. And with the launch of that course, made in a week what I made in a year at the church. and
Wow.
pretty much went to my husband and was like, can I
Uh,
quit?
yeah.
Yeah. And so that was when I went full time into building my
Wow.
business.
What was your following like at that point?
Let's see. By then, I think I was around like the 10. I know I had the swipe up. So
Okay.
I was at the 10,000
Yeah.
mark by then.
That's incredible. What a like overnight just mind shift that you're doing. What was your husband's reaction?
Oh, he was all for it, right?
Yeah.
He was so excited when, like, I tell people very openly, we were broke when we got married. When we had a kid, we were super broke, honestly. And he was working really hard. My husband would leave before we woke up and get home right in time for dinner 6 days a week for the first,
Gosh.
I don't even know how many years of our marriage. And so I just wanted to help. I mean, I needed to
Mhm.
help, but I wanted to help. And also, like I said, I had started to really feel that itch to have something that was mine. And so it felt like working at the church was going to empower me to build something else. But it is crazy to look back and just see how, I mean, I grinded
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. So how do you navigate the balance of being really authentic on social media, especially in your stories, while protecting your privacy, your family, and that sort of thing, and your mental health? Because I'm sure you have trolls like crazy. I have no doubt. So how
Yes.
do you do
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I try not to feed them, right? You don't
Yeah.
feed the trolls. And I'm pretty well insulated at this point. I have a really incredible team around me that they probably see a lot of that stuff and I just never know it. And I
Yeah.
think that's healthy, right? Like if there's something that they
It
feel
is.
like I need to know about, they'll let me know. But by and
Mhm.
large, I keep my comments limited on Instagram. And it's so funny because people will DM me and be like, oh, this girl has her comments limited on Instagram. And even if I disagree with the person, I'm like, yeah, you probably, I mean this in the, like, I don't mean this in a condescending way, but you probably have no idea the wildly unhinged and out of pocket things people feel comfortable saying on the internet. And so my perspective on it is you can opt in. Like you can follow me, opt into the conversation, and then if you want to be insane, there is still only certain level of insanity I will put up with until I'll block you and you'll just completely lose access. But
Yeah.
I'm not all I don't allow like drive by crazy, which people do all the time. They
Mhm.
just leave these crazy comments. And so that's that's I just want to like make that clear for people listening. That's probably why people that you follow have their comments limited to
Yeah.
people who follow them are the only ones that can comment because people are crazy. Um, and then I have my own rules. I do my best to not show my children's faces or
Mhm.
really them a lot on Instagram, which bums me out because my kids are freaking awesome and hilarious and so cute and smart and wonderful. But people suck. People
Yeah.
suck online. And I also feel really strongly about protecting them from, like, when they're older, if they can make a informed decision that they're comfortable being on mom's Instagram, we'll have that conversation with their older, but they're 8 and 10 right now.
Yeah.
And that's just not, they think it's super cool and they love when the back of their head is on an Instagram story, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I take a lot of breaks. I take a lot of breaks now. I didn't for
Nice.
the first 6 years. But that's a newer development, especially, after everything from last year. I knew, really hitting the ground hard last year that the next year I was going to try to take some deep breaths and take some breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That's smart. Do your girls, do they ever pretend to be like their content creators and things like that?
Oh yeah. 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 My oldest loves it. And we're a lot alike. And so she's talkative and inquisitive and curious. And so she makes videos. They just don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So what does your team look like? How have you gone through the process of figuring out exactly what you need to create those people around you that can support you, shield you from what you might need to be shielded from, and that sort of thing?
So my best friend is my chief of staff, which is just such a gift. And when I first started everything, I created a note in my phone, and now I can't find it, which is just the worst.
Yeah.
But I created like a set of goals and rules for myself. It was really important to me that if and when I was able to build a team, that there was a relationship there, that there was a friendship there. And so Kylie became one of my close friends right around when I kicked everything off, like 2017, 2018. We met online. She lives in Michigan. I live in Southern Louisiana. And she had a job, and she has her own, platform and Etsy shop and all these kinds of things. And then in 2021, I just felt this like nudge. And so I went to her and was like, look, I support everything that you're doing. And if you want to keep running that, just say no. But if you ever wanted to come on board, like I was looking for someone, I knew it was time I needed somebody to like run my emails and run podcast inquiries and bookings and all that kind of stuff. And God had already told her that she was going to work for me.
Oh my gosh.
And so she became my chief of staff in 2021. And so she runs the show there. I cannot tell you how often I'm like, I don't know, ask Kylie. And then David came on not long after that. He's my podcast manager.
Sweet. One
of my favorite human beings on the planet. Again, I don't know, ask David. I cannot tell you how often I say that. And they just do a really incredible job of my goal was I want to do the things that only I can do. And I want to bless and pay someone to do the things that I don't need to do. And so that's kind of our mentality. And then I have two teams. I have an Instagram, or like not Instagram. I have a brand management team that helps me manage, companies that want to work with me and contracts and all of that kind of stuff. And then I have the same thing essentially, but for my podcast. So I have two ad management brand teams that run all of that, because there's a lot that goes into all of that. I had no idea. You're clicking through your favorite influencer stories and they're talking about stuff and you're like, yeah, I want that. I want that. And then you behind the scenes, you're like, oh my gosh, contracts and approvals and, requirements. And it's a lot. And so I think it's 8 people between those two teams that run all of that. And so I'm, like I said, incredibly blessed to have the team that I have.
Yeah. Sounds like the Lord has led you to each of them individually for their own strengths. So that's awesome. And it's so important, it's easy. I think I've seen so many founders get bogged down by the people that they're working with, and that can lead to a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
So the more you can really focus in on bringing in the right people, have them in the right seat.
Oh yeah. Awesome. That's so important. And I have contractors, there's multiple people that are small business owners that they know, we work together enough that it would be viable to say they were on the team, but they're not, because they run their own thing, and so I'm all about, if I can find someone that's better at something than me, let's be friends.
100%. So do you have advice that you would give other entrepreneurs trying to create an online presence? How would you suggest to them to not get caught up in trends or comparison of just then clamming up because they're like, I can't even do this. What's your suggestions?
Well, I would first of all say that I don't know if that ever fully goes away, right? I've been in this for over 6 years. I've been online over 10 years. I'm pretty well established. I've got a pretty good little following at this point, and I still get in my head, and I still look side to side at what people next to me are doing and compare myself and tear myself apart and tell myself I'm doing a terrible job. And so I think it would be helpful to know going into it that it gets better. It gets a lot better. But the idea that goes away entirely, I think it's a little bit of a myth, because I have friends in the industry and we all kind of struggle the same way. But I think the power is in pushing through it. The power is in believing in what God has asked you to do, believing in that he's going to pave the way. Unless the Lord builds the house, it will not stand. Having that attitude and just walking in obedience and faithfulness and being confident in your gifts is huge, huge, huge. Whatever way God has gifted you, if you're spending your time hemming and hawing and I don't knowing, ultimately you're kind of spinning in God's face a little bit. I hate to tough love you, but you're saying that I don't believe you, or this isn't the gift I wanted, or I don't think that it's good enough. And that was a big realization for me kind of early on, because I think we like to kind of package that up and rebrand it as humility, and it's really not. It's kind of almost pride, if we're honest. And so I love that quote that nobody can decide who to attribute it to. I've always attributed it to C.S. Lewis, but then I got an Instagram story taken down the other day because I attributed it to C.S. Lewis. But it's like that humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Yep.
That I flip-flop that for a really long time. And so think of yourself less, think of your audience, think of how you can use your gifts to offer value, to connect with people, and stop trying, like, if I keep up with it, if I do a trend, it's because it's like a cute reel. You know what I mean? I will jump on a trending audio just because that's smart business in the online world. But outside of that, I'm just going to show up as I am, and people are going to love it or they're going to hate it, and whatever, either way.
Yeah. That's why I love you so much. It's so easy. Like, there's just such a stark difference between the people who are, attempting to perfectly curate things that just don't feel genuine.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not your vibe.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Has there been any unexpected challenges across your journey of being a business owner where you just did not anticipate it, that it's kind of hit you straight in the stomach, I guess?
I'm like, how much time do we have? There's so many. I thought it was going to be it's significantly more difficult to monetize a podcast than anybody tells you.
Mm-hmm.
That world is weird. I'm so sorry, but it is bizarre. Being in both, being in the content creation monetized world and the podcast, or like, I'm sorry, I should say like social media world and the podcast monetization world. It's completely somebody speaking Latin, and it's not Instagram, like it's just crazy. And so I don't do anything unless I can do it 110%. And so I put a lot of time and energy into this podcast. And I'm a big believer that people deserve to get paid and compensated for their time and effort and gifts if people are showing up for it. And so the people were showing up, but like, there was like, I don't know how to monetize. Like, there was no way to monetize it. So that has been I feel like I've jumped that hurdle like 17 times in the last 4 years. And so we are literally, my podcast is 6 years old. It is one of the top 100 Christian podcasts in the nation consistently. And I had just gotten it monetized. Barely. Barely. And I would say like the negativity, definitely the trolls, as you called them earlier, that knocked me on my butt for probably a good year when I kind of, my following grew pretty consistently. Well, like, the negative is going to come with the positive, unfortunately. And so it took me a lot of therapy and prayer and conversations with my husband to get to a place where that doesn't rattle and derail me the way that it used to. Completely did not. It's not that I didn't think it was going to come. I didn't expect it to knock me on my butt as much as it did.
Yeah.
I would say. And so those two things have probably been the hardest, I would say, because like I kind of said earlier, the rest of it ebbs and flows with you, and you kind of make it what you need it to be. And so, my business, that's a weird part. Like, my business is me.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too that it proves that you're human, because, and I feel like the Lord has definitely given you thicker skin than probably the average person. Not to say he isn't also saying like, look, I'm going to put you in this position because it's going to grow and stretch you. He's kind of just like said, sorry, Blake, this is where you're at.
100%.
And figure that you're going to figure this out one way or another.
Yeah. Oh, there's been plenty of times where I have wanted to walk away from it. I won't, like, I'm not even going to lie. And it's funny that you say I have thick skin, because I'm like, I don't think I do. Like, I don't think I have very thick skin. I think what it is like I had to get to a place where is my identity? And I do believe that God allowed all of that, because I had no option but to hold on to him as an anchor. Because when people around you are trying to tell you who you are, and there was a season when that was at its worst, as far as like the negativity and the haters or whatever, and of my personal relationships were falling apart, and those people were telling me, and this is all obviously centered around what? 2020, everybody's favorite year, right? And so I lost friendships and gained notoriety online. And so I was left to realize that I had no foundation in identity in who I was in Christ, and kind of had to like build the plane while it was flying, but had gotten to a much, so I mean, maybe I do have, I would maybe say, yeah, maybe I have thicker skin now, but it was not innate.
Yeah. I don't think you could be as bold to just like take the leap like you have without a level of having some sort of thick skin. Not to say it isn't easy, because I'm sure it's not. So what do you do on those hard days when you're like, I've been knocked down 20 times? What do you do to push through?
I have a note in my phone. How many times can you mention your notes app in one podcast interview? The limit does not exist. My notes app might be my most used app on my phone. I have a, and it just is a list of truth and Bible verses, and I have screenshots in there from people that I love telling me that they love me and they're proud of me and what they believe about me and what God believes about me. And it's kind of cheesy. It's not. My closet is my prayer closet. It's the only place in this house where there's 3 doors between me and all the humans in this place. And so I can close all of those doors and really get in a quiet place. And I will sit there and I will read over it and I will ask God to remind me and calm my spirit. And it works every time. Not knock on wood, but it works every time that I just have to reroot myself in truth. Because the truth, like, I actually just read a book recently, I cannot remember the title of it, about the negativity bias and how our brains are biologically wired to hold on to the negative as a protective measure. And so over the last 6 months to a year, I've been trying to like rewire that, and you rewire it by infusing it with the truth and kind of refusing to keep going through those neural pathways. You write new ones. And so I have notes. I have Post-it notes everywhere. I have dry erase notes everywhere. And I just try to stay really rooted in not only like, who does God say I think is the most important, but I think it's also really beneficial to have like, who do the people who know me and love me, what do they say about me? Because I love that people on the internet feel like they know me. That's the whole point. And I am so humbled by the fact that my real life friends will tell you, like, I am who I am online in real life. There is no switch to get flipped. And so if the people who know me love me and God loves me, the rest kind of comes out in the wash.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. So what were you like as a kid? What was little Blake like? Do you feel like there were aspects to your childhood where you're like, you look back now and you're like, oh, this all kind of makes sense.
It tracks. It definitely, I make a lot of sense. I was like very curious, pushed back on a lot. I was also different. It sounds like such a sob story, but my parents had to pull me out of private school because I was getting bullied so relentlessly just for like being different and having different interests. And I wasn't super into sports. I really liked to read and, create. And I actually like didn't care that was different. Like I can remember thinking everybody else was dumb for going outside and playing dodgeball when the AC in Green Gables is available to us right here, in Southern Louisiana. Like I think I was coming out better on that. And and then I was homeschooled for a few years and then went to public high school. Ooh. I need to have a conversation with my parents about like what the decision-making process was there. But I don't know. And it's just like, I've always been kind of introverted, which surprises people, like, and did my own thing and into different stuff. Like I was a huge Garth Brooks fan and got made fun of it relentlessly. What? Yeah. Garth Brooks wasn't cool back then, apparently. I don't know. Whatever. People have bad taste, right? Yeah.
Terrible taste.
But also, like, I was very talkative and very, like, I was social. But I decided I wanted to be a lawyer when I was like 12. and almost did it. And then God said, hey, I don't think you're going to be able to be a lawyer and love and serve me in a way that really brings me glory, which also tracks. That was fair from God. And so, yeah, I don't know. I had a really beautiful childhood. My parents are incredible. They've been married for almost 40 years and they love Jesus. They, uprooted their life to move closer, to be closer to us and their grandchildren. So I'm definitely one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you grew up in Louisiana though, right?
Yes. Born and raised, never lived anywhere else.
Sweet. Awesome. Same with me right here in Kansas. I grew up on the western side and live out east now, but
okay. Yeah. I moved like a whole hour and a half away from my childhood home.
Awesome. Yeah. You can pay me enough money to leave Kansas. I just won't do it. I just won't.
That was a process for me. I definitely fell out of love with Louisiana for a period of time and had to fall back in love with it. But now I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I followed your kind of journey on that road.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of trust. And it's really cool to see kind of how God has changed your heart in that.
Yeah. It really is. Like, I think a memory came up the other day and I was drowning. Like, I hated it here. We were begging God to let us leave. And God was just over and over so clear. Like, when you're like, you want to act like you can't hear him, but you can, and there's no denying it. And now I look at our life and I'm like, just so thankful that we listened.
Yeah, that is awesome. So I'm going to jump over to you writing your book. Is that something you would do again? Like, is writing a book fun, not fun? What's your take?
Oh my gosh, I haven't been asked about this in forever. I mean, I'm going to stay on brand and be just brutally honest. I hated it. I hated it. I actually signed a 2-book deal and canceled the second book because I was like, I cannot do this again. Now, I was also writing my book in 2020, 2021, right? Yeah. Things were contentious and heavy, and my online presence and my book presence were very disjointed from one another. And I think the best way to describe it is that I think they thought they wanted somebody to rock the boat because I was very open and honest about who I am and what I bring to the table. And then the boat started rocking. Yeah. So it wasn't the best experience I've ever had, which is why I never talk about my book. I forget that I wrote a book, honestly. You see authors with a whole shelf of their books behind them. And I'm like, I think I got one over there somewhere. I can't even see it right now, but at the same time, I'm so proud of my book. The book that actually came out the other end has God all over it. And he was able to preserve the stories that it was really important for me to tell. And I was going through a really, really transformative season as far as relationships and identity. And that's all over that book. So I know for a fact that it meets people where they are and that it speaks to them and it makes them feel seen and known and heard. And that's literally all you can ask for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was worth it. And it's probably touched so many lives that might have been a very miserable process, but, I'm sure transformative for so many of your readers, for sure.
I hope so.
So what are your goals for your business this year?
I'm really excited about the Speakeasy Lounge. I cannot tell you how many times since we started building it in January that I've been like, oh, I wish the lounge was open because I have this I want to talk about, or I want to dive deeper into this with people, or I just want to be able to connect with them about that. And I have, since I started, been a little bit of a psycho about Instagram DMs. I can remember my husband grabbing me by the shoulders when I was probably at 150,000 followers. And he was like, you can't answer every DM, Blake. It's not possible. You're making yourself crazy. And it's just this wild standard that I set for myself in the beginning. And I'm really excited to be able to have it be easier to just respond to people and have other people answer questions that maybe I can't get to, because my audience is so smart and educated and critical thinking. And so I'm really pumped about that. I'm obsessed with this season of the podcast. It's been kind of banger after banger, honestly, and that's just one of the perks of getting it to a point where it's big enough that it's mutually beneficial for people to come on the show. My podcast team was like, what or your dream guests. And I was like, I kind of booked all of them. Like, I'm good, you know? And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are definitely like huge people. Like I would love to interview Mike Johnson or, you know, somebody like that. But, and maybe down the road, it's not off the table, but I'm really, really enjoying the podcast. We're trying to move it to YouTube. This has been like more of a process than I ever thought it'd be. Again, perfectionist tendencies. My podcast manager literally last week was like, we just have to do it. Like, you have to stop. You're being so insane and like perfectionistic. And also just like getting to slow down a little bit has been such a gift. And I feel like at the beginning of the year, I heard God really clearly, like, you are not CNN. You are not a news station. And I had kind of, with the campaign and everything, gotten into that mode, and it's really unsustainable and not productive or helpful to your mental health or your home life. It's great for business, I guess. I don't even know if I would say it's great for business, because even in slowing down in the last 3 months, I've had so many people who are like, oh, thank God. Like, let's not tap out completely, but the rigmarole. Like, I'm a huge believer that we were not born, and nor were our nervous systems created for the 24-hour news cycle. And so opting out of that has been, and so I just can't wait to see like what God does with that, because we're only 3 months in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. I have a feeling the Speakeasy, the Speakeasy, not the podcast, but the membership is going to be incredible.
I'm excited about it.
A new wild ride, and I'll be just obviously watching. I'm on the wait list because I am also so curious, because I just feel like it's going to be such a great avenue. And I think you mentioned this on your stories, maybe it was last week or something, where it actually might help me pull off of Instagram a little bit, because I'm always like, what's Blake saying?
It's so funny how many people have said that, because I came to it I thought the inclination was going to be people being like, oh no, don't leave Instagram. I've not gotten a single DM like that. I've gotten plenty of DMs because I said in my stories that you're talking about, I was like, I'm not leaving Instagram. And I mean, probably 50 DMs of people going, you're not, but I might.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's brilliant, which part of me is like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, because I want to make sure you still have, like, I feel like as much traction, people seeing it and not totally piecing out. Like, that volume probably makes a little bit of a difference. But it's also like, you know, the news, what's Blake saying right now? My husband will even say, hey, what's Blake saying about it?
Oh my gosh. Husbands are always the highest praise to me, right? Because I'm a girl's girl. I know, like we vibe, we get it. I love that. When people DM me about husbands, or husbands follow me and DM me, I'm like, oh, this is my crowning glory.
Yep. It's funny. It's hysterical. Like, it's fun. It's so much fun. So you're a household name. I mean, that's legit. So what's one decision you made early on that you feel like has been a game changer for your business's success?
Let me think on that one for a second. I think really early on, that note that I was mentioning, where like my early goals and non-negotiables, I just have asked God to keep me humble, to keep me grounded, to keep me rooted, that I want to change. I want to morph. I want to be refined and sanctified, but I want to stay true to who I am and what He set me out to do. And I think that I understand how it goes to your head. I understand how you get, quote unquote, like too big for your britches. I get it, right? Like, because we need to be fair here. Yes, there are people who say terrible things online, but I can also open my inbox at any given time and have dozens upon dozens of DMs of people telling me how pretty I am and how smart I am and how much they love me and how great I am. There is a level of humility required to not let that go to your, like, we're not letting the trolls go to our head. We need to also not let like the fans go to our head either. And so I have watched some of my favorite creators kind of lose the thread a little bit, and you're watching them going, oh
Please
no,
don't.
don't do that, you know,
Not you.
like, I love you so much. And I don't want to act like obviously the prayer is that we're 6 years in, that we're kind of past the point of that being an issue. And hopefully I don't ever, put my foot in it and have to come back to this episode and go, oh, that didn't work out. But I think that like, you asked earlier about advice for people and all those kinds of things, like humility. I know I've said that word probably a dozen times in this episode, but I just think it's so important. And I think that making that decision early on to not just like, I'm going to stay humble, but to ask God to keep me humble, to ask God to like, I'm very word picture-y in my brain. And so in my head, I was like, keep your hand on the top of my head.
Yeah.
And like, when I try to rise myself up above you and your goodness, or that you built this, like when I try to go into, look what I did.
Yep.
Just like, sit down, babe. Yeah. You just go ahead and sit down. Like, you go ahead and sit. So I think that is huge. And also the decision that there's so much power in privacy, which is really interesting to walk, because I love being vulnerable, because I think there's so much power in solidarity. But there's also so much power in like, there are a lot of things just are not for the internet.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. And you have the discernment to figure that out and pray.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So if you had a crystal ball, and you're looking back and you're like, that would have been nice to know when everything got started, what would that be?
I think I would have loved to have given myself a heads up about how awful people can be, to kind of circumvent that. Because a lot of the struggle with that was self-imposed. Like, I thought it was, again, look, I know we have beaten the word humility to death at this point, but I think I thought it was humility to like listen to those people. I think I thought like, I don't want to be above reproach or criticism, when in reality, like, they're not, it's not because they care. They just hate you, And so I think I would have loved to have circumvented that. But then I would have also loved to have been able to tell myself like, look, babe, all of this, all these late nights, early mornings, working with a, toddler crawling up your leg while your husband works 70-hour weeks, and you're exhausted and y'all are like barely keeping the lights on, it's going to pay off. Like, that would have been cool, I think, to be able to just like, hey, keep going,
Yeah, it's going to all work out. Yep. So how can people find you? How can they see your content, and support you?
Yeah. So I hang out the most at The Girl Named Blake on Instagram, and my podcast is The Speakeasy. But if you go to my Instagram, I have a link in my bio, and we do a pretty good job of keeping that updated, as far as like, I send out a newsletter inconsistently, and I have my link to my podcast, The Speakeasy Lounge, courses, favorite products, all that kind of stuff all lives there. So it's kind of a one-stop shop.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, thanks for joining me today. It was a pleasure having you on and talking and hearing more about really the business side too, of what your day looks like every single day as a content creator. So thank you.
This was so fun. I don't talk about that as much, so this was great.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Entrepreneur's Blueprint. I hope you found inspiration and insights to fuel your entrepreneurial journey. If you're looking for support in building or scaling your business profitably, visit my website or send me an email to learn more about how I help mission-driven businesses become more profitable, proactive, and efficient. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps other entrepreneurs discover the show, and it would mean so much to me as well. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep going.